I'm right here! Slaughtering those people.
Ghost of Tsushima was robbed. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Veteran Gamer here. And today's video is going to be a little bit different, a little bit of a rant video. I recently went back to start playing Ghost of Tsushima to finish off some side quests that I left from before my original playthrough. And going back to play this game again just reminded me how basically corrupt the Game Awards are. Now, I'm going to be straightforward with you. If you look at the nominees that the Game Awards had for Game of the Year, it was Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Doom Eternal, Last of Us Part 2, Animal Crossing, and Final Fantasy VII Remake. Out of those titles, Animal Crossing and Hades are the only games that I have not played. Animal Crossing because it's only on the Switch. Hades, well, I just haven't gotten around to it. But the rest, they are all deserving of being a Game of the Year candidate, in my opinion. And if I'm going to give my biased opinion, my fanboy opinion, it would be Final Fantasy VII that wins it. But I'm a big fanboy of Final Fantasy VII, so I'm not going to count that. From an objective perspective, an objective point of view, Ghost of Tsushima should have won Game of the Year. Now, again, I'm not saying Hades or Animal Crossing should not have been there. Again, I haven't played that. But of the ones that I did play, there is no way The Last of Us Part 2 beats out Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, it took me about 23 hours or so to actually finish The Last of Us Part 2. And while there are aspects of that particular game that is really, really good, I think the graphics are probably the best on PS4, hands down. I think the animation's really good. I actually think that the actors and their performances are fantastic. But that's where the buck stops. I mean, never did I play a game that critics and awards shows and what have you gave it so much praise, but there were large parts of that game that were flat out boring. I mean, that game suffers heavily from pacing issues. I mean, it is all over the place. There are moments of brilliance. There are moments where you're like, yeah, this game's really good. But then there's large sections. And without getting into spoilers, that game in particular, you get to about the halfway point and things are looking good. And then all of a sudden, bam, the pacing goes right down to a crawl. And it's not a crawl for 20 minutes or an hour. No, it's a crawl for 6-7 hours. What the hell are you guys doing? Meanwhile, Ghost of Tsushima is fun, front to back. When I look at a Game of the Year contender or a Game of the Year winner, it is a complete package of everything. Presentation, gameplay, fun factor, originality. That's what Ghost of Tsushima had. Yes, it had a lot of tropes from a lot of other open world games, but it had its own spin on a few of these things too. Things like the wind mechanic. That wind mechanic, instead of having a little waypoint, you swipe up on your little touchpad there, and boof, the wind gusts through, and it points you in the direction of where you need to go. Other little things, the little nuances that improve the open world experience, is when you have to follow an NPC in Ghost of Tsushima, that NPC travels at your pace. If you want to walk, they'll walk. You want to sprint, they'll sprint. These are little nuances. Don't get me wrong. These aren't the reasons why it's to me, Game of the Year. It's Game of the Year because it's a complete package. Amazing visuals. Amazing story. Great combat. The combat's a hybrid of Assassin's Creed meets Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, which was another Game of the Year winner. I mean, the environments are varied. Full-on day-night cycle. I mean, there's also different styles of play in Ghost of Tsushima. You want to go swords blazing, go in there, by all means. You want to take the quote-unquote ghost approach and be stealthy? Yeah, by all means, do that too. They're both viable. There's many ways to go about any scenario. The Last of Us Part 2 is a great narrative experience. Yes, regardless of how you feel about the story. I personally don't like it. But it's still a great experience. And I don't agree with the review bombing that happened to that game because I still think it's a good game. I just don't think that that game is Game of the Year over Ghost of Tsushima. Not a chance. You know, maybe Hades is up there. Maybe Animal Crossing. I haven't played those games. Hell, I'm looking at the list and I'm like, how come Assassin's Creed Valhalla didn't make this list? I think the world of that game, and I don't even care for Assassin's Creed. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima was the complete package, and it got snubbed. It got snubbed for no other reason than the identity politics and the BS around it. It was nothing more than that. Plain and simple. Anybody who thinks that Last of Us Part 2 is Game of the Year of 2020 is either didn't play anything else or is just completely on board with like the SJW nonsense. Because again, it's not that it's a bad game, it's just not Game of the Year. You know, when I look at some of the other titles of 2020 that came out, there's quite a few that I've played that is better than what The Last of Us Part 2 offered. The Game Awards is a sham in my opinion. All the fan votes with regards to 2020's Game of the Year had either games like Hades or Ghost of Tsushima as the top dog. The only time The Last of Us Part 2 was the top dog was from a critic standpoint. And we all know how critics are. So, to me, this game was robbed. Forget the fact that the footage in front of you is playing on a PS5 and that's 60 frames per second. Forget that. Because my original playthrough was on a PS4 Pro and it was 30 frames and I still love the game. I still think it was Game of the Year. Last of Us Part 2 is 30 frames still. So whoop-de-doo. To me, this was the game that was robbed. It's not right. You know, I'm glad that, you know, Sucker Punch got the praise from the real fans. I'm glad that they supported it. I'm not even counting the fact that this game got a free post-launch multiplayer mode. I didn't even play that mode. I just cared about the single player. This game was robbed. Plain and simple. And anyone who thinks otherwise, you know, you either didn't play this game or you're just like an SJW fanboy, I guess, because it makes no sense that game, I don't see how a game that has boring parts is gonna be Game of the Year. It doesn't make sense. Doom Eternal was more fun than Last of Us Part 2. But that's all that's for me today, guys. Veteran Gamer here. Ghost of Tsushima was robbed. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.